the tech is so complicated. They can do so many cool things, but then they fail to zoom out and see how that suits, how it makes their customers' lives amazing. It's like, it does this thing. It's like, that's great. But then what do people actually care about? Do they care that it does the thing, or there's so many other layers to that? That's why we try to talk with customers to understand their whole world and how does the product actually fit into that space, rather than coming top down. Our product is the best. You have to buy it because it does all these amazing things.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Okay, here we go. Oh man, I'm excited for today and the conversation that's about to unfold. I'm excited for the learning that I'm about to have today because my guest is absolutely amazing. I can't wait to introduce you to her. She is a marketing leader, a thought leader, a conversion copywriter, a messaging strategist, a customer anthropologist, keynote speaker, all the things. Winner of the Experimentation Thought Leadership Award in 2024. She's one of the 60 influencers in A/B testing you need to follow. People are just talking about her. They're listening to her. They're following her. And she's led over almost 100 sessions of mentoring startups on go-to-market and media campaigns, conversion optimization, and growth mentor. Head of strategy and copy at CAPE.Agency, Eden Bidani. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Casey. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's great to speak with you. To finally speak with you. We've been trying to have this session for a little while, I know.
Oh my gosh, we have. But like, finally things have lined up and we're doing this. So I'm excited to learn from you. And I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but I know you are tough because you have a million kids. Here we go. Ugh.
Wow. There it is.
Go ahead. Grab Thor's hammer. You want to take that?
Yeah,
You got it? Okay.
I got it.
There we go. All right. Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
All right. So here's the big one. Are we ready? So we need a drum roll or something like that?
Ready.
So here we go. The myth that I'd love to smash is that words are not what copywriting is all about. It's not what copywriters do. They do not do words. The reason why I say this is that words are the output of what a copywriter does, but there is so much that happens before we actually get to that output that is so critical to making sure that output, those words, fall in the right place. So what I mean is, copywriting as a whole, it's 80 to 90% strategy before you even put pen to paper. So much of it is deep research, it's onboarding, it's understanding how the product is positioned, it's understanding what the competitors are doing in the market. You have to have this it's understanding what customers think and feel. Are you targeting the right customers in the first place? It's so many times I'll start off a project with a client. And in fact, that's why I also moved to do a messaging strategy and not just strictly copywriting, because I would get a brief and I'd say, okay, but wait, this doesn't sound right. Who are you really trying to sell to? How is your product positioned? And they wouldn't have answers in the first place to tell me. So it's like, okay, so we need to figure that out before I can figure out which words to actually use. And you have to have this really deep understanding of marketing and then of business strategy, brand strategy as well, to be able to make sure that you're communicating in the right way to the right people. So for those words to land well, to resonate with the audience, for them to actually convert, it's not just, oh, I'm going to add a few a few more exclamation marks, or I'm going to talk in a salesy tone and it'll just sell. There is so much to it that happens before you actually get to those words. And that's why as well, there's so much, at the moment, there's so much angst and hype simultaneously about AI replacing valuable elements in marketing. And that's the illusion, right? Because AI writing tools will give you words. It's like, well, great. I wanted words. I needed words. I needed words for a landing page. I needed words for a website. I needed words for an ad. Um, and it gave me words. It must be right. But the AI, unless you pre-trained it, unless you've gone to that effort to like train a custom GPT, or you've gone or to train an assistant properly, or unless you or unless you've crafted an incredible prompt and an incredible brief with all of that information, it's not going to be right. What it's going to give you is going to look right, but when you actually start reading through it word by word, you quickly notice that there are things that are missing, there are inconsistencies. There could even be totally wrong information in there because it hallucinates. So you will get words, just like a copywriter will give you words, but the process and how it happens is totally different.
Yeah. Man, it's like people are fixated and they want the end result. They want the words to land, but man, are they neglecting the majority of it, right? And yeah, and I guess either way, without the right context, without all that research happening, doesn't matter who writes it, it's still going to be crap, or it's not going to be geared toward the recipient. Why do people do this? Why are they so fixated on the wrong thing?
It's a really good question, because I think they've been told that words are the solution, or what copywriters have sold themselves as wordsmiths, word wizards, word cowboys, word magicians, word something, whatever, as if words are the answer to all your problems. But it's not even that. Like, I'll give you an example. A couple of years back, I worked with a client. They have a very, very technical, complicated software solution. And they were pitching to the CIOs, so the chief information officers at organizations. And they wanted to create a landing page for these people, for these C-level executives. And so I asked them, okay, fine, we can create a landing page. I said, can you tell me a bit about the buying process? What happens? Like, what is that customer journey that they would go on? Say you do get a chief information officer to put his details on a lead gen form. What happens next? I said, well, he's going to go to an SDR who will spend 30 minutes vetting him. And I said, are you ever going to get a C? First of all, I highly doubt that you're ever going to get actual CIO to leave their details on your landing page, because he doesn't have time to do that. Second, no one in their right mind is going to then spend half an hour being vetted by an SDR. You know how much time, like how much money his time is actually worth to the company? There's no way he's going to be doing that. They said, well, this is their process. I said, look, I can write you a landing page. It can be the best landing page in the world, but I don't know if it's actually going to convert because of the people that you're trying to target. So, they might get directors, director level, manager level, fine. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I highly doubt you're going to catch these niche people that you're going to catch, because the illusion is that, yes, we can do it digital. We can target anyone. We could get anyone. We can reach anyone. And theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
But we have to layer reality back on top of it. Just because the internet is always on doesn't mean that people are always on. Doesn't mean that everyone has free time to click on every ad and browse through every landing page. It just doesn't happen.
We sell ourselves short, and those copywriters sell themselves short when they focus on the word. And the thought that came to mind as you were describing that is it doesn't even matter. Your landing page, the words, they don't even matter. You're offering something stupid, like the offer. You don't understand the audience. You don't understand what they're going through, and you're offering them something that they'll never take. So who even cares what words we put? I could see why this could be a real challenge for those that are good with the end result, because you can't bill yourself as I mean, you can't even say yourself you're a copywriter is the term that your audience will understand, but you're so much more than that. You're like a marketing strategist to be able to then have the right words.
And that's what a good copywriter really is. I mean, I think the term copywriter is, but no one's looking to hire a temporary marketing /brand/business strategist for a short-term project, for a single campaign. They're usually looking for, they're missing the words. They're missing someone to create that landing page for them. And so that's what they think they need. but it only takes a little bit of probing to actually understand that there's a lot more happening beneath the surface there than we can even begin to fathom.
Right. And AI is a great example because it doesn't have the context. Maybe it's remembering part of the questions you've asked prior to, but unless, like I've often said, like to a GPT, like ask me 10 questions and then give me an answer.
Yep.
But without the context, you're right that it's going to hallucinate. And I guess that's what modern copywriters do too. They hallucinate just as much as AI does. If you haven't answered all these questions about the brands and their buyer, then you're also hallucinating, right?
100%.
As a human.
100%. And so this is what's really interesting. So AI writing tools, there's a good thing that they're doing. Like when I originally started it, I was working for a content mill. So I was writing a web page, $15, or
Oh yeah.
a 600-word blog post for $15. And I would get a brief. It's like a one-line brief. It would be like, write a landing page about landscaping services and this is the company name. You'd have no information. You'd have nothing to go on.
Right.
Target audience is everyone, 18 to 95 plus. And that you'd have to go. So you have to get creative. You have to try. But at the end of the day, you have no idea if it's actually what the client imagined. You have no idea if it landed or not. You don't even know if they actually took the copy and they used it properly in the end either. But that's what AI is really replacing. It's replacing that race to the bottom kind of Fiverr or Upwork, or, I will write you for $5, something, and hopefully it will work for you. Hopefully it will, not just sound nice on paper, but it'll actually drive the marketing results that you want it to. So that's a positive thing, because it's not sustainable for writers to be able to do that. It's like working in the club, it's sweatshop work basically for writers.
Yeah.
But and that's what AI is replacing. So if your only output has ever been just words, then it's going to be difficult. Then I can see, yes, of course, there's a definite reason that AI can replace that, because all you're doing is just words. But true copywriting is really that, like I said, so many more layers on top of that. And it's so firmly integrated into the marketing team. And it should be even more so. It should even be to the business team, I would say.
Yeah.
There's a critical part of business communications as a whole, but that's the real illusion. That's the thing we're struggling with.
Okay. Well, I have heard, and I feel like I've got the cold water splashed on my face. The true copywriting, the idea of the good copywriting, and all the things that need to happen before that, separating us out from the others, human or non-human. Like either way, we separate ourselves out from the competition. We do this the right way. So my next question really is like, what do we need to do what are those steps we need to take before putting pen to paper, before thinking about the words? How do we prepare to write the words?
100%. So usually it's a three, for my personal process, it's a 3-part process.
Okay. 3. Okay. You mentioned so many other things. I was worried. I was like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be 90 things you do. So 3, I'm excited. I can do 3 things.
Okay. I said it's a 3-part. I didn't say there are 3 things.
3-part with subparts. Okay. I'm still down.
Right. So the first part is that internal research. So I really like to, depending again, obviously on the size of the project and what were the assets that we're looking to create. At minimum, it's trying to speak with the key stakeholders who this is important to. So usually you're looking at the CEO. Again, depending on if it's just a landing page, I don't need to speak to the CEO. If we're looking at totally redoing the website, if they need to if they're rethinking their positioning and messaging, then yeah, we need to speak to the CEO multiple times. We're speaking to the CEO, head of marketing, head of sales, head of customer success, head of engineering often, especially for tech companies, or the CTO. As well, we're looking to any other key stakeholders that are critical. I love to speak to the AEs and the SDRs as well, because they got their boots on the ground and they're the ones they're using different messages today to try and win customers. And it's good to hear from them what's working and what's not. At the same time, I love to attend a demo of the product. I want to actually see what's this thing, how does it work? And there are so many things that you can grasp just from actually seeing the product. So when I used to work a lot with e-commerce companies, I'd often get set samples too. And you can learn so much just about the customer experience by actually holding it in your hands and imagining how another customer would feel as well. So you've shared that experience. Seeing a demo of the product as well, huge. Like it gives there, and you can ask questions. You can say, well, what does that thing do? Or what does that feature do? And, you didn't tell me this beforehand. This wasn't in the brief that you gave me. This wasn't in the questionnaire that you filled out of those discussions that we have, but you keep finding more and more information as it goes on. So that's the first part. That's the critical, those internal, that internal assessment you go through as well, any existing communications that they have. So they'll probably have a brand deck. They might have some product messaging. They might have some other assets that they've used in the past. What are the one pages or decks or things that they're using right now to help pitch the product? Second is trying to get some external validation as well. So we've heard from the team. The team's on our side now.
Okay. So sorry, that was the first part, right? So we're saying the second part now?
Yeah. So second part is external validation. So we did the internal. We spoke with everyone on the team. Now we're going to speak. We heard from the company. Now let's hear what the customers actually think. So that's trying to get as close to the customer as possible. And what I mean, preferably in one-on-one interviews. So the client's not even in the room, and I'm someone that they don't even know, so they can talk freely about what their experiences are really like. I'm not there to judge. I'm just there to listen. And it's amazing what you can hear from people when the client is not in the room. And nothing combination, good things, bad things, constructive criticism, but also good feedback. So it's all a really good learning experience. But they tell you so many things that would never come up in conversation otherwise with the client, because they have an existing relationship with the client, and so it's awkward. They sit down and say, "So, do you like our product?" They go, "Well, yeah, of course, I'm a paying customer." Awkward smile. But if you say so, and I don't even ask them if they like the product or not. I ask them, "So how did you first come across it? How are you using it day to day? What would you do what would you go back to doing if you didn't have it?" So all these kinds of open-ended questions that to give me a glimpse into what their day-to-day life is and how the product fits into it that way. So trying to get as many of those as possible. As well, if it's not possible, to watch recorded customer demos and sales calls to see to try and get a feeling for what interests them the most during a demo, what's the kind of questions they're asking, what objections they usually throw out, they usually toss out over the space of the call to understand. So try to get an understanding of what they think, what they're thinking, what their thought process is as they're going through the buying process.
Right.
And the third and last part is that market research, the wider market research, looking at which category they're in, what are the other competing tools in the same category, what are indirect competitors that might deliver the same business outcome, even if they're not the same tool or category, or what are similar. So you're looking at, for example, there's if you're looking at customer experience, so there's a whole bunch of tools that could be quote unquote classified as customer experience. It's not an official software category, but it could be anything from Zoom, because that's part of customer experience, because you can walk customers through in a demo or a call. But it can be something like analytics tracking, because you're looking at, HubSpot, for example, a CRM, because you're helping manage the customer's experience and context that way. So
Right.
it could be a wide range of tools that fit a certain, to fit the business outcome that they're looking to achieve or plug that hole. And it could even be something like, well, an intern does it, or we just use spreadsheets because that's what we've always done. So sometimes it's not an indirect. Your biggest competitor is not often a competing product. It's just doing nothing, or just doing what we've always been doing.
That's such a huge point, like the status quo, right? Just the do nothing. I'm safer not changing anything. Yeah, I'm using Excel. It's super inefficient, but it works. There's no risk if I just keep doing this.
I spoke to a developer today, and that they'd always been using SQL databases. And he said, and I was so happy with my SQL database and I loved it. And it was so fun using it. And I thought I was really good at it. And then a client forced him to use a different type of database. And he was in the beginning, he was like, I don't want to do this. And then after he was like, wow, I am never going back to SQL. I love this. And so, and if he'd never had that experience, he would have probably still stayed in his lane. So it's only until you kind of meet these things or have these transformative experiences, or even sometimes it's forced upon you from by a boss or someone else or a team member, then you don't even get to meet these products. So actually doing nothing is a huge.
Yeah. Man, right about the time you mentioned the third part, my brain just completely obliterated and I realized, man, how does everyone not just hire you to do all that work prior to the words? Because I could the words at that point will just, well, there is some skill in it, but they will flow so much easier and it'll be so much more straightforward of like, yes, I know who I'm talking to. I know what they want them to say. I've seen the demo. I've listened to external validation, and now I'm considering the market as a whole and where you fit in, and yeah, what how I mean, this gets into just, I mean, each one of these things is its own project. I mean, when it comes to the wider market research, are we trying to figure out where they fit into the ecosystem? Like, is it a new category? Is it the same category?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the time, a lot of companies will want to try and create like a new category because, oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
We're doing something different that no one else is doing. But there's a lot of dangers that come with that as well. And often you can find an existing category where you have a competitive differentiator that no one else has. But if you're not, so sometimes you just need to move from one category to another. So you've been classed as one type of tool, but if you change the category, you become a much more valuable tool in a different category. So you haven't changed anything about the product, you haven't changed anything about what it does, but then you flip. I'll try to prop that up with a more practical example because it sounds a bit airy-fairy at the moment.
Sure.
Um, yeah. So I'm working with a client at the moment and they have a product that's very firmly in, it's like demo software. So they very firmly have a type of demo software, let's say, and they're in this demo software category. And it's a red ocean at this point. Really competitive. There are so many different things and their product doesn't necessarily differentiate. But when we zoom out and we look at the type of business outcomes that their product is driving and the capabilities, they've been a market leader in the space, but now it's become the market's really crowded. The business outcomes that they can drive actually fit an adjacent category that's aimed more at enterprises. So they serve enterprise companies. They also serve a lot of mid-market, but they're also trying to look a bit up. But the way the product works is that they align really well in an adjacent category of competing solutions. And then they have a competitive differentiator that no one else does in this new category. So we're in this process of trying to figure out, okay, so it's very hard. It can be hard conceptually. Sometimes we have to shift category, but if you think about it, are you trying to align with just what the product does, its functionality, or are you trying to align with the business outcomes that companies are looking for? Again, when you're trying to, and I'm talking about software products that it's like 100K, 200K plus that you're selling a year. So it's not like, okay, it's a SaaS product. I'm going to buy it for $7 a month or $20 a month, like for ChatGPT. When you're looking at big products with big long contracts, it's tricky. It's a tricky process. The sales process is complicated. The buying process is complicated. Procurement, everything, POCs, it gets messy. But if they were to move into this adjacent category, then they've not only changed who they're competing against, but now they have a strong differentiator against all these other people, and they're still driving
Right.
the same business outcome that these other companies say that they are. So that's a whole project, like I said, in itself. But the outcome of that will be a positioning statement. It'll be a vision and mission, and it'll be a company story that cement that. But to get to that, we have to do this process of figuring out where they sit, who they're being compared to, and trying to zoom out and look even in general, what are other potential categories they could fit into where they could stand out even more strongly. So that's, a lot of mental gymnastics there.
And then we write the copy.
And then we write the copy. Right, exactly. But otherwise we'd be stuck saying the same thing that they've said in the last 10 plus years. Stuck saying the same things, which is not helping them right now because the market has shifted and it's more crowded.
Right. And saying the same thing as everyone else, which is what AI is going to give you, so
Exactly.
you're not differentiated at all.
And you just said something that it's so critical to know. Again, AI has only been trained on what's out there. It hasn't been trained on what isn't out there. And if you would ask AI, it would say, well, you should stay. More or less, it's going to tell you to go with the data, because that's what it does. It works on logic trees. It works on predictions, and it's math. It's an algorithm. So it's going to tell you to go with the data. It's not going to tell you, no, actually, you should make this bold move that's going to help you differentiate and put you on a different track. But so often you need to take that. You need to do that zag. You need to do something different in order to actually get to the result that you want. So AI will probably say, no, but this is what you do. You fit this category. Like, why would you move? It makes sense to stay in the category. It says, well, if you shift the category and you shift across, you open up a whole new world of growth for your business. So it's not going to tell you to do the thing that no one else is doing, also because it doesn't know what other people aren't doing.
Right. At all. And that's where the human, that's where you come in. That's where understanding all of the context, way larger than any AI context window. That's where that comes in. And then some creativity. Man. Well, my next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? How do you know these things? Take me back in time. Little Eden dates. Like, did you know you're going to be, raising a amazing family and also just teaching the world how to write good copy by not even thinking about the copy, but thinking about everything that comes before it? Take me back in time. What was it like growing up, you?
No, that's a really interesting question. I don't often get asked that on podcasts. No, I did not know that this is what I wanted to do. I loved reading when I was younger. I loved reading. I mean, I was reading like Jane Eyre when I was like 9. So I was heavy. I was like a 9 or 10. I was a heavy reader, something like that. I finished the Lord of the Rings, the books, long before the movies came out. I read it at least once a year, kind of thing. Like, they were thick books, man.
They're thick. They're big. Yeah.
If you read the Lord of the Rings books, you know how much they left out of the movies.
Oh, 100%, right?
That's it. The movie is like 10% of what's actually in the book. But so I loved reading and I loved words, and I did not know, though I had not the slightest idea that this is what I would end up in. I actually thought I would end up being in forensics.
Really?
Yes, which is very different, because I loved the idea of putting together that puzzle. That you had to take all these different clues, and it could be a blood spatter on a wall. It can be a fingerprint over here. It can be a trace of hair. It can be this. It can be a message on an answering machine. All these kinds of things. A broken window, a not broken window. It's not just, is there a broken window? It's what if there's no broken windows, like in the house, if you're looking for evidence. It's trying to put together all of those different pieces to figure out what actually happened.
Little details, right, that add up.
All those little details. And I think, and I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sherlock Holmes said something along the lines of like, he's also trying to figure out what looks normal. What's normal that you'd skip over, but that it's actually really important. And that's one of the critical details as well to all that world of forensics and, being a detective. So I didn't think I'd be a detective. Like high school guidance counselor, I think, said, you could be a private investigator. I went, no, thank you.
Right.
But I said, but with forensics, that's like private investigation. Like, yeah, okay. So I went down for it. Lucky I didn't listen to her. What they went. So I went to study forensics. So I started with anthropology and biology. Um, I started with science, learning both a double degree, so science and arts at the same time.
Why the biology? Was that kinda still thinking about, or no, it was sociology. What was it?
No, so I started off doing a double degree in science and art at the same time, for forensics. Specifically, if you wanted to get into forensic anthropology, which is the people who do the autopsies and try
Yeah,
to figure out, piece back all the clues that way as well. That was the far end of forensics.
right.
Um, if you want to go all the way to that end, you need to also have, you had basically have a medical degree as well as do anthropology. Um, Not a set of humans. But I very quickly learned that I didn't like biology at the university grade level. So I dropped that half and I just continued with anthropology and sociology, which fascinated me deeply, deeply, deeply
Yes.
fascinated me.
In what way? That is, I mean, you're studying people and society and culture, like, but it's still a mystery, right? Or still it doesn't necessarily, what was it about it? What was it about it that fascinated you the most?
So because as people, we all have our own biases. We all have our own way of looking at the world. And we have our way of looking at the world and other people have. And it's trying to the idea of anthropology is you're really trying to put yourself into someone else's shoes and try to understand how they see the world. And from that, you learn you not only learn about their experience and what's important to them, like as a human, on a human level, like human to human, like titles, degrees, then everything else, everything goes away and strip everything else of it. It's just human to human. And you're trying to understand how you learn about them, but then you also learn more about yourself and your place in the world too at the same time. There's this real reflective thinking that happens. And anthropology places a heavy, heavy emphasis on ethics throughout the entire process. So it's not, it's like, say you could see a documentary about a tribe of people living in the jungles of the Amazon. And through that documentary, if it's skewed in a certain way, it's going to make you see those people potentially as primitive. You're going to say, oh, they don't have electricity, running water. They're primitive. So that means they also don't have society and culture. Well, it is so totally not true. It does not mean they don't have complex familial relationships. They don't have an economy of their own. It does not mean at all that they don't have these complex systems of engagement and relationships and trade and commerce and all these kinds of things. And it's just so fascinating to look at it in such an authentic way, to say, no, this documentary is wrong because it skews your look at these people. The best way is to go up and get close to them, to actually participate, if you can, in the daily life, and to really understand and learn and speak with people who are living there and try to speak with them even in their own language. Get them to tell you what it's like, what their life is like. And he would cover just some wild, like really wild, crazy things at the end of the day, we're all so much more similar to each other than we think.
Wow. Wow. This is just good marketing, putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
At the end of the day, yes.
Yeah. I almost feel like more marketers should take those classes than marketing classes, because that stuff will sort itself out. But putting yourself in their shoes, that's the part you need to focus on, you know?
I think the more so than psychology. There's a lot of topics
Yeah.
like you need to psychology, you need bioeconomics, all these things like that. And yes, but when people focus on the psychology element of marketing, it quickly falls. And there's a thin line between persuasion and manipulation. There's a very thin line there, and it gets crossed a lot. Well, it's not even a thin line. There's actually a really thick gray line where you're not sure if are you being persuasive or are you being manipulative? Even without intending to be so. So anthropology has this huge emphasis on ethics, about being authentic and to bring that to copywriting, you're trying to find a way to authentically connect with your audience without abusing that. So without being manipulative, so without being trying to find the most authentic way you can connect with them.
How do you do that? Probably a complicated question, but how do you approach that in the day-to-day marketing world? Because you're right, marketing can very easily get, how do I trick this person into showing up?
Absolutely. So like I said, with the external interviews, usually that's how I try to get up and close with them as much as possible. That and observation. So where I can, so I'll try and find communities. I'll try and find Slack communities or Discord communities and see where the target audience is hanging out and how they talk to be not to get in there and ask questions, but to be a fly on the wall and see how people talk to each other as if you're not in the room. Same thing, Reddit threads can be a really great source. You can see how people talk to each other and how they communicate, the kinds of comments they leave. Any other way that you can try and connect with the people, either observing a little bit from afar when you don't participate, because that's the best, because then you can hear how they talk between each other.
Yeah.
And as well, there's one-on-one interviews to go a little bit deeper and ask them then some questions that you're not able to clear up otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. An example of that is once when I was working back in e-commerce, I was working with a client that wanted to sell a type of hearing aid product, a cheap one that people could have around the house. And all the hearing aid companies were saying the same thing. They were saying, hear crystal clear hearing, hear better than ever, hear the birds singing in the morning, and hear your grandkids. Like again, it was all the same thing again and again. And I said, well, what can we say that's actually a little bit unique or that might be authentic and actually reach to people? What's an authentic way we can try to connect with people and then help show them the benefits of our product through that authentic connection? And some of the things I came across, it said that for those who are suffering from age-related hearing loss, they said, I feel normal, but it's like my body, I feel normal. I still feel me, 100% me, but it's like I feel like my body's not cooperating anymore. It's like I feel that it's like I feel fine. I'm mentally fine. I'm all here,
Right.
like everything. I still feel young. I still feel everything, but it's like now people are treating me differently. They're treating me like I'm quote unquote old. And it was a really terrible feeling. And others were resistant to getting hearing aids because they didn't want to look like they have a disability, for example.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want to look like they were differently abled.
Oh, sure.
So, and it was really fascinating. So it's like, okay, so there's actually there's strong reasoning why they would not want to have it as well. And there was in the ads and all the other competitors we were looking at, there was no remnant of even understanding that might be something that they're going through. So that these are the problems. It's not about cost. It wasn't about cost.
No.
It was about how they look and how they felt inside. What
Right.
doing it would mean to them. Yes, they could hear better. Yes, it was frustrating them, but they were willing to continue suffering in silence because they didn't want to look. They didn't want other people to start treating them differently because of it. And that is something really powerful to have an understanding of. How
Yeah.
that changed the whole approach to the campaign that we run
Whole approach.
completely.
Yeah, the idea, I immediately better ideas come in my mind where it's like a picture of someone and you're like, yeah, this person here is great now, and you can't tell. You can't tell. Look, they're, it's, they don't even, it doesn't even mention the cost, doesn't even mention the this or that. It's just that here's some pictures of people, all they all have hearing aids and you can't tell the difference. They're just, you're all, yeah, so many ideas come up, but like ideas where we're not just in a bubble, we're just coming up with random ideas. We're coming up with ideas to speak to our buyer and authentically try to solve the pain that they're experiencing and the frustration that they're experiencing.
When you can show someone, I understand you, before you've even told them what your product does, that is the most powerful form of marketing. We can say, I get you. I understand you. It's people the battle is already half over. To try and help win them to make that connection is half over. That's what marketing is at its core. It's to make that positive first impression, because you can't guarantee that you're going to convert everyone. What's that? The 95-5 rule is 5% of buyers are actually in market, 95% aren't. You make a strong enough impression on the 95%, you're top of mind when they do come in market. So it's compounding interest. So what's a way that you can reach to people? How can you reach people in an authentic way with authentic communications that really get through to them, that breaks through that noise? Everyone was
Yeah.
saying, here better, here than a da da da. And say, you know what, we understand how you feel. You might feel apprehensive about getting it. Here's why it's still worth it. Here's why it can still be worth it for you to get one. And those are the kind of impressions that stay with people for a really, really, really long time.
Yeah. Tell you what, the impression that's staying with me is I need to work with CAPE. So tell me about this group you have. How do you work with companies? Who are your ideal buyers? And yeah, tell us more.
Absolutely. So it's not really a group. Agency is the word I gravitated towards because I don't like the moniker freelancer. Freelance copywriter feels very very transactional, like I said, and
100%.
when advertising on fun, for example, and there's so much more to the process. So agency it is, and it's myself and my head of operations. So it's still just me. It's still just me,
Okay.
but I have a team. Um, but but that way it allows you to do a lot more, deliver a higher caliber of work. I also have someone again managing contracts, all these things on the back end for me. So it's huge. It's a huge help. Um, so yeah, that's to clients. I mean, wow, I've been blessed to work with clients from all walks of stages. So well-funded pre-seed startups all the way through to enterprise grade solutions, mid-market and enterprise. Vast majority are B2B services, software and tech companies. And that's fascinating. Really struggle a lot with communicating. They get stuck in and talking about the features of what their product can do because they build these amazing products. The tech is so complicated. They can do so many cool things, but then they fail to zoom out and see how that suits, how it makes their customers' lives amazing. It's like, it does this thing. It's like, that's great. But then what do people actually care about? Do they care that it does the thing? Or there's so many other layers to that. That's why we try to talk with customers to understand their whole world and how does the product actually fit into that space rather than coming top down. Our product is the best. You have to buy it because it does all these amazing things.
Yeah. And having an outside person come in and ask all these questions and ask questions of internal, external, the market itself can really set any company up for success. Like I said, when I heard the third part get started, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how any company doesn't hear this conversation and go, all right, I need some help. Let's reach out. So one final question to ask you that kind of wraps up this whole story. Fascinating. By the way, yeah, I know a lot of podcasts don't ask that, and I wish they did. To me, I feel like that's the context that flavors your marketing is your past, and clearly with the sociology, the anthropology, it has. But one final question for you around that, if you don't mind, it's a hypothetical question.
Okay.
You see,
Mhm.
I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. So the next time you come to Boston for an event or whatnot, come visit. We use the time machine. It's in the backyard, covered in a tarp. And so you use a particular kind of time machine because you get to go and meet yourself a few days after graduating with those degrees you got, right? The sociology, anthropology. You get to meet yourself a few, like 4 days afterward. What do you tell yourself?
That's a really interesting question. Um,
What advice or recommendations or
I
thoughts?
sort of wanted now my life would change so much and
Yeah.
when and that couldn't even imagine even when I graduated. I would say to myself to keep your mind open because because there is a way to to do something that you love and be well paid to do it. Think keep don't just kind of settle for less. keep trying to find a way, and it's okay to experiment, to try a few different things until you get to that. I think that's what I would have told myself.
I love that. And my natural follow-up question is, do you think you would have listened to yourself?
If I saw myself come out of a time machine, and I know that I probably take it seriously after the initial shock. There's a reason why you're coming to talk to yourself. It's a really it's a very difficult question. I'd like to say yes. I don't know if I would though. Again, like
Yeah.
being totally honest,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I would have. I would like to imagine that I would have said yes. No, for sure, I'll do that.
It's interesting, right? Because you haven't told yourself not to do this, not to do that. It sounds like you have valued the journey, the different twists and turns you've taken.
Yeah, there's so, and I think I think that ties in just even my experience of studying in university and then changing the degrees. Partway through. When going and following down that path, it was okay to try things and drop things that aren't a good fit and continue with things that were. So it feels like in line with what the advice I would have given myself is kind of in line with what I was inclined to do naturally anyway. But once you graduate, you get married, you start having kids, and things get a little bit more difficult to still stay true to what you like to do and what you love to do and what also pays well. Um, I remember having this conversation with my parents, when you're growing up, and they said, well, this is way before remote work was even a thing. Before Zoom existed, I'm talking way back, not too far back, but way back. And so they said, well, there are things you love, and there's hobbies, and so you don't have to love your work. I mean, you can have a good job and it can pay well, and you can and you can do your hobbies outside. And there are some people that have a job that they really love, and there are all kinds of different situations. So you might have a job that pays well that you don't like so much, but then it gives you time, means to enjoy your hobbies outside of that. But there are some that you have a really job that you love, but it might pay less than what you need. So there's, they tried to prep me for all kinds of interesting situations, but the jackpot, of course, is to be able to have the privilege to be blessed. Sorry, not just have the privilege, to be blessed to do something that you love, and as well, they'd be able to make a living from it at the same time. So I think just being able to tell myself that yes, that option does actually exist. You don't have to do something that's, you don't have to sacrifice your living standards just to do a job that you love, but you also don't have to sacrifice your soul to do a job that you don't love because it just
Right.
pays well. So I think I'd like to listen to that.
And it's a great direction too. You're just giving yourself guardrails. You're not dictating the next move. You're just saying, listen, you don't have to settle, but the amazingness is out there and you'll find it. You got this. That's beautiful.
I would have also said, don't forget the jackpot numbers on this day will be
Yes, exactly.
will be X, Y, Z.
And to buy Apple and,
Yeah, buy Apple. Yeah, there's this thing called Google. You're gonna buy stock in it.
yeah, yeah. But when it's at $5 a share, definitely grab
Yeah.
it. Oh man, so good. Hey, where can people reach out if they want to connect, work with you, just even connect with you? Where are the right places to do that?
Yeah, sure. LinkedIn is the best place. I don't have any other social media account. So just on LinkedIn would be great, or through the website. More than happy people to reach out.
Excellent. And we'll link to both of those in the show notes so people can click right through. You don't have to type anything. And yeah, man. And thank you so much for coming on here. And when I look back on this conversation, there's just so many takeaways. Again, the water has been splashed. I am awake now to answering the three parts, the three questions, the three series of questions and inputs and the outputs to be able to then write something successfully. So thank you for coming on here.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we finally got to talk.
Absolutely. Totally worth it, in my opinion. And for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with someone else. 1 person, 9 people, 3,000 would be cool too. But even 1 person who needs to hear this, who next time you get really bad marketing too, maybe you send them the link to this episode. Who needs to hear this? Who needs to just shift their focus from being so word focused, the wordsmith, the word cowboys, the word magicians, shift them over to just really going out and seeking that information, the internal research, the external research, but share this with other people so they can learn from this too. With that, Eden, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks again, Casey. It's been fun.
Absolutely. And this has been an amazing, very, very, very informative, a very fun episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.